All right, hello and welcome to the third Tuesday training. My name is Anna Fleece. I'm the Food and Ag Development Center Director with the Great Falls Development Alliance. Today, so just as a heads up, I'm part of the Food and Ag Development Center Network. We are 11 centers throughout the state of Montana that are dedicated to helping food and ag businesses just thrive, whether they're startups looking to expand or looking to get additional resources or funding opportunities. We are also joined today by Sam Blomquist of Prospera in Bozeman, Montana, who's another member in the FADC. So Sam's welcome to put her contact info in the chat if she likes. Other than that, today we are joined by Tracy McIntyre, the Executive Director of the Montana Cooperative Development Center, otherwise known as MCDC. She just celebrated her 5th work anniversary this month, so we're very excited to have her and all of her expertise. And I just want to give a little bit of a call out for her. In her 5 years in this position, she has not only navigated COVID, which I know was rough for a lot of our organizations, but she also rebuilt her team basically from the ground up and made sure that they were much more diverse and sustainable, and they've just helped dozens of co-ops in these past 5 years. So I'm very excited that we'll be able to talk to Tracy today and learn a little bit more about co-ops and how to build them in Montana. Thank you guys very much. All right.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah. All right. So Tracy, we're going to start off with a little bit of not quite role play, but interview into scenario. I'm going to present a bunch of different scenarios for like when would be a good time to start a co-op, and you let me know if these are the right times for co-ops. So for scenario A, I am a farmer. Me and 3 of my friends are looking to combine our farms to do a co-op for like a direct-to-consumer meat processing. Is this a good idea for a co-op?
It's a great idea for a co-op, but you need one more person. So one thing there's 4 different forms of cooperatives in the state of Montana. And so also, Jessica, I know you don't live in the state of Montana, so I am also going to make a little bit of a statement here. Co-ops are a global form of business, but they are controlled state by state, especially in the US. So in Canada, it's more province level, right? And so every state has different laws. And so be cautious of that. So we always like to kind of start with that caveat, making sure people understand. So in Montana, we have 4 types of co-ops. The one that you're talking about, Anna, would be a producer owned or what we call an agricultural marketing co-op. That one requires 5 people or 5 farmers, producers of those kind. The other cool thing about a producer co-op, though, is it's really within the value-added chain, and the state has some very specific language in the law that talks about what is a producer. So you can actually add some processors into it. So say it's a meat processing center, but there's also a specialty butcher that you want to bring on who owns his own company. You could bring that one in, but you and I as consumers cannot be part of that co-op. So yes, great idea. We fully support it. We've actually seen and helped support a couple, and a couple more are coming online with us. So we love the meat processing or any producer co-op. They're actually one of the oldest forms of co-ops in the state.
Excellent. That's really good to know. Now, on more of the processor side, me and another 3 of my friends, I've just got, 3 really good friends who are into making co-ops. We want to start our own flour mill because, we've got a lot of like regenerative wheat farmers in our area, let's say. Do I still need 5 people total to do more of a processor co-op?
I think you would want to weigh out those options. So a producer agricultural marketing co-op has some caveats within it that you would want to do. I think for that one, where it's a flour mill more from the processing side, you might want to explore a cooperative association. Some of the biggest difference there's more flexibility in the cooperative association. So as you grow, maybe you decide, hey, I do want to have consumers. That's a great way of formalizing your capital. And so you could look at something like that. I think it just gives you more flex if there's changes in the future. One thing though, and for most people, there's a lot of confusion around co-ops being charitable or nonprofits or things like that. Let me just clear the air. Co-ops are not a charity entity. Should never be treated as such. But in the ag producer co-ops and the utility co-op laws, there are some tax exemptions and some opportunities to maybe get some tax breaks, where in a cooperative association in the state of Montana is full for profit. What we often do though, and just to also kind of make sure everybody's on the same page on this, Co-ops are often referred to as not-for-profit, meaning that we do not set up co-ops because of stockholders' return, right? The opportunity here is in your case where you have you and 3 friends as the business owners, you all need that service, and it's about meeting the service or the need first and foremost for the members. Profit, return on profit is kind of a secondary. Now, with that said, we still want to see your mill, of course, running in the black and having a good balance sheet and everything. But the focus is really about the need and the service, not the cash on the end.
Excellent. And then you mentioned there are 4 types of co-ops. So we've got our producers, our utilities, our co-op association. What's the one I'm missing?
Let me share my screen real quick. I did some quick slides for you guys. I'm never on this one, so bear with me for a second because it looks a little different on my end. Okay. So if we go to this fun slide, oh, that's big. Can you guys still see that?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. So we are under, again, every state has different. So in Montana, we're underneath Section 35. And so cooperative associations are the Chapter 15. That's where our office is seeing the most growth. This is where we have a lot of flexibility. This is where we also come up with our "we can co-op" that slogan, because there is no sector requirements. In other states, there may be some sector requirements. So in a Chapter 15, this is where our investment co-ops, housing, all of those fall in. We do have a Chapter 16, which is also an agricultural association. This one is becoming pretty obsolete. There is a land requirement and a very hefty process to set this one up. I think this probably had a value 100 some years ago. There's actually only one in the state of Montana that is incorporated underneath that. And then there's one that is misincorporated underneath that we're hoping to clean up and get back over. So the Cooperative Agricultural Marketing Association, known as Chapter 17 in our world, this one is the one that you can get some exemptions. That's kind of where you see that nonprofit come into it. It is a hefty application, though, to apply for those at the IRS level, but we are seeing a pretty tremendous amount of growth in the Cooperative Agricultural Marketing Associations as well. And then we have our utility co-ops, Chapter 18, for your electrical and telecoms. Additionally, and this is something that we're working with at the Secretary of State, we have out-of-state co-ops that don't really fit in these categories, so they're under a different code, and credit unions also are underneath a different code. Then what really gets fun, I don't know how deep you want me to go on this, Anna, we can also do federal or multi-state ones too. So there's lots of ways for us to incorporate.
Excellent. So that's really helpful as well, just kind of seeing all the different ways that the co-ops can happen. And so is Montana pretty unique? Because you've mentioned that every state's different and that under that Title 15 or Section 15, anything can be co-opt?
Yeah, I think we're definitely we don't have those sector requirements on us, and I've never actually done how many different states have that. Just working with my counterparts, there's like 32 co-op development centers across the nation, working with them and also serving on the national board. We definitely have some unique characteristics. The flexibility is wonderful. And I think it's a great thing that we have it, but it does add maybe some extra layers and jumps through. That's why we're here, though, is to help people get through all of that.
That's perfect. All right. And that ties right into my next question. Okay. So me and my 3 friends, we want to form our co-op association. How do we get started? What's our first step?
So that's a great one. So the first step is you should call us, right? So if you call us, but what we have, and just get into the right slide. So we actually walk you through. Our office has created a 5-step process, and by no means do we end at step 5. It's just that to actually get you through incorporation. So really the first step is to introduce the idea. So in your case, Anna, where maybe there's a very controlled environment of 4 to 5 people that want to talk about it, step 1 and 2 probably would blend a little bit, but where it's a community and there's an idea around it. We did this in like Butte Food Co-op when we were developing them. they really kind of had some introductory levels to see, is there even a need in the community and where is that at? And would this be something to move into exploration? When you get into that exploration stage, it's really talking to those members and determining, is a co-op is a co-op the best one? So the other thing is there's also this misconception that we just throw co-ops at everything. Our team spends a lot of time talking to people in step 1 and 2, making sure that's the right fit, and then working with our counterparts like the FADCs or small business development centers and saying this doesn't really fit as a co-op. We don't think it is. So we will recommend something else. But really where it's at, and then determining if there's enough interest to create a steering committee. From there, the steering committee starts to develop the plan. We work on feasibility and business planning. We structure the governance. We spend a lot of time on governance. What's really cool is myself and my whole team, we're trained facilitators now. And so we really can help lead those through, because the other thing to keep in mind, co-ops are democratic, meaning one vote, one voice, like that whole thing through the whole system. So we start implementing those early on into the process. So it kind of builds into governance from the start. Then we'll walk you through legal. We've spent the last 5 years spending a lot of time creating templates and making sure that we have everything ready for the legal process to be as easy as possible. And we start working on policies, your state and federal incorporation processes, and then we start moving you into operation. This is where you start recruiting your membership. We do board trainings once you're fully formed and the board is selected. We can work on capitalization management and governance. And then ideally, because our office is tied to the Council of Co-ops, a non-sector trade association, you would move into those services as well.
Thank you. That's actually a really good model. And Tracy, we'll be able to send out these slides in a follow-up email. Hopefully.
Yeah, sorry, did you not hear me? Yep, I'm all
sorry.
for it. Yep.
Perfect.
These are public facing slides. You can have them.
Love it. So we'll send that out to everybody too. Since we're such a small group, Sam did ask a question, which I think would be great to talk about at this point, but can you give us a brief case for why a co-op model is beneficial versus maybe a more traditional for-profit or a non-for-profit?
So let's start with a nonprofit. So in a nonprofit, you really get into that charitable versus non-charitable. There's some pros and cons to that, and that's one of the conversations that we have. So in a nonprofit, though, there is no ownership. And so we're really talking about this on multiple levels. I actually even have an article wrote and some slides which I don't have with me today, but talking about a nonprofit, a mutual benefited corporation, and a co-op and what those differences are. The biggest difference is ownership and control. If you give money into a charity, unless you're on the board, you really don't have any say after that, right? It's gone. In a co-op, what you do have is through your membership voice, annual meetings, electing board people, all of that, you do have a voice on how that money's spent. Some co-ops can, like our investment co-ops, can literally get down into the nitty gritty with their membership. And then at the end, if something was to happen, a nonprofit can't give you dividends or patronage back, right? Or if it dissolves, you don't get any of those assets back. They have to be to return to that. Where if a co-op dissolves, you actually receive, you have equal share in debt and profit. So keep that in mind. You don't want to see a co-op fail if it has a lot of debt. And then also you can, if it's structured as such, receive patronage, which is based on a return based on how much you use the co-op, or if you've created an investment opportunity with it and you've invested additional money, you can get a dividend return on it. So that's the biggest difference between those. Coming into more of a profit level, and I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, there are some tax benefits on the cooperative side. Corporate tax, sometimes you can see that being done twice. The corporation gets taxed, and then if you as a stockholder get money, you also get taxed. In a co-op, you only get taxed once, either on the corporate level or on the private level. And then also it comes back to that control, having that democratic one vote for one person. No one stockholder or one person can't own like 51% and sell it out from underneath you or anything. So there's a perpetual lifespan of co-ops. Some of our co-ops that we're working with right now are And one we think was in 1889. We're actually going down trying to figure out when they were fully incorporated. Doesn't matter. We need to work with them now. But yeah, I mean, that's just shows you how old the co-ops are, and how they just can continually grow and change. Hopefully that answered it, Sam.
That's really cool. I had no idea like how old some co-ops are, but that makes a lot of sense. In some ways, they're one of the oldest like form
They
of businesses,
are.
organizations. Yeah.
The oldest co-op is the Philadelphia Mutual Insurance, and it was formed by Benjamin Franklin. So it was actually formed prior to us adopting the 7 guiding principles of co-op. So modern co-ops kind of historically have it based on 1844 or 45 Rochdale pioneers in England, which is really interesting. It was a group of miners, and not of high class. There's a lot of class division happening at that time period. They were being gouged by the people that had money on they were controlling all of their food access and stuff. So a group of pioneers, they called themselves the Rochdale Pioneers, came together and formed a grocery store and created 7 guiding principles that are still used today, across the globe in co-ops. And then I just find it fascinating given how much we are doing grocery and access to food work today. And in 1844, that was kind of our founding entity that started it all. So, yeah.
That is really fascinating.
Or really sad, depending on the fact that we're still fighting this food access stuff, right? Like,
Yeah, it's true.
It's both, but it's pretty, yeah, I find it pretty fascinating.
But it's great that there's this option for people to get together, especially in rural communities, and really explore a way to get that need fulfilled for their community. Yeah. Just want to check, does anyone else have any questions? Perfect. Going on, so now that we're kind of talking about like different forms of businesses when somebody's trying to start something, how many conversations do you have with a co-op like in a given year? Like, or people who are considering co-ops?
Whoa.
I'm sorry, I'm making you pull out
You are.
request.
I actually was pulling up a list. So we have it's end of year, so I should have this handy. I just haven't added them up yet. So we've created 5 new co-ops this year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but 2 of them took 5 years to incorporate. One is a multi-stakeholder that has 5 different forms of ownership stacked up on top of each other. And it's a combination of like a traditional food co-op, the retail side, the food hub, processing, development, aggregation side. And then they're also developing like commercial kitchen, retail. So it's been interesting. So right now we have.
All right. Hopefully not to steal the thunder, but I believe that was our Montana food hub that we discussed 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they're very unique.
So we have 17 co-ops under like in process forming. Those may take a year. They could take 5 years. Average time, I think the quickest we've done is 6 months. The longest is the 5-year. I would say average is 18 to 24 months. And then I don't know, I'm going down through this list. I think we have about 50 to 60 communities that have had 2 or more conversations with us, but they haven't formed a steering committee. So are in that initial stage 1 and 2.
Excellent. And you feel like most companies or organizations kind of start in that stage 1, stage 2, and then maybe realize something else is working, or there's not as much of a motive, or not a motive, but like a need, or that kind of somebody to take lead, as it were.
Yeah, so you do have to, in that steering committee, we talk about the democratic process and how you really do need to kind of set up that equal voice at all time, but you do need a champion. You need somebody that is passionate enough to kind of keep that initial group moving forward, calling the meetings, keeping people on task and stuff like that. So our office can't act as project managers. We are your advisors and we bring you through, but we do like having or like seeing 1 or 2 people that kind of are those lead people that we can talk to and say, hey, if it's going off a little bit on the derails, we check in with them. Do you think it's going to keep going? Do we need to transfer you over to another EDO that maybe is going to give you like a C Corp or something like that? So we try to stay in our lane of just working on the cooperative side, and not like once they start to look like, ooh, maybe this isn't a co-op, we try to transfer them over to somebody else. And hopefully that happens the same way, right? Like others, we get referrals from people all the time. So.
Perfect. So I believe and then Sam has a good question. Is there a time limit, or is there a limit on revenue, or are there limits on co-op transactions across the state borders or nations? Are there limits on transfer of ownership? And then finally, can you have tiered ownership, founding members with large shares, etc.? And Sam, you're
Sorry,
also—
that's my laundry list.
I love it.
Wow, Sam. Okay.
Yeah.
There is not a limit on revenue. There is a limit on your dividend return. And so on dividends, that is your investment cap. This is nationwide. That is capped at 8%. Montana was 6% last year until last session when we got it up to the 8%. So we matched federal standards. Limits on co-op transitions across the state, it depends on how they're incorporated. So that's actually a tricky question. There are multiple. REI is a great example of a multi-state ownership, right? Tillamook, like there's hundreds, thousands CHS. I don't know if I have a actual number of how many work across. They're more, multi-state or a federal co-op. They have to incorporate, and then most of the time, if they're going to do an operation, they do a DBA. Now, Montana state laws is a little, I don't want to say confusing on that. We're working with the Secretary of State right now on cleaning up how what's called foreign cooperatives do business in the state of Montana. So there is some confusion on that right now, but they definitely can. We have multitudes of them, but cleaning up that process so it's easier for them to do business in the state. There is some limitations on selling stock in between state depending on how you're set up. So you do have to be a little careful because co-ops are blue sky exempt. So on those security laws, there is some limitations on how you can sell stock outside of the state of Montana. And that is part of what our legal team comes in and works with people on. If there is. Now, most of the co-ops that we're setting up are not really looking outside sales. Limits on transfer of ownership, that's case by case. Some have it where it's an inheritable stock. Others say it's not. So if it's only a $50 stock, like some of our food hubs or food co-ops, it's $50 to be a member. That's not a transferable one per se. Every co-op is different. They actually, during that structure of governance, they determine what that is. Now we have some stock that's 10, 20, 50,000 to buy that initial stock. That usually has a transferable component to it of some kind, or it's tied to the estate of the individual. So it's literally case by case. And you can absolutely have tiered ownership. We see you can have tiered ownership based on the first 30 members are going to get XYZ, but they don't get extra votes and they don't get extra ownership stock. They might get extra benefits of some sort or something in there. We also have seen it where the steering committee there's 3 steps that the steering committee kind of morphs through. What we're seeing is a lot of them for that first year of operation, they actually write in their bylaws that the steering committee / commissioners will become the first year of board, just so there's some continuity. Oftentimes they have other board members joining them, but they kind of try to keep some continuity between the steering committee and the first board. That doesn't always have to be tied to membership though. And then, like I was saying with Montana Food Hub, you can actually structure if there's different interests. So you and Anna are farmers and you like to do that. Jessica, maybe consumer, like all 5 of us have different interests, but we all have the same need. We can all come together and we may have different tiers based on the need that we're solving, but none of us would have more voice or more votes.
Perfect. that, all right, so I just want to be aware of the time for everyone. We are at 12:27. Happy to stay a little bit late and keep answering questions, but no, this usually runs to 12:30. I just want one more question from my side. Clearly, Tracy, you are the expert and your team is the expert on a very complicated system. Is there anything we can do as, Montanans or service providers to support with the work that MCDC is doing?
Well, thanks, Anna. 20 some years of working in the co-op field. I hope I know what I'm talking about by now. But I will tell you, I learn stuff every day. I have excellent counterparts and I'm always excited to learn. I think more than anything, I just love the relationships that we're feeling that we have had and that we continue to form with our counterparts in the state of Montana, from the FADC's Small Business Development Center, Montana Manufacturing. I mean, our laundry list of partners is pretty intense. We try to stay involved in different conversations and represent the cooperatives, as well as have like an idea of, hey, could we co-op that? What would that look like? And bring those models in. One thing our office is doing is, just so people are aware, it's not just about ag and food related. We do a ton of different work. We have childcare models. We actually are publishing toolkits on investment or opportunity development ones right now on multi-stakeholder worker conversion. Succession planning using the cooperative model is really becoming a forefront model across the US. And so we are publishing that. Actually, it's published. It's just we're doing our press release and tours right now. So I think that would be maybe the biggest thing, Anna, is to help let people know that this is a resource here. The state of Montana helps fund us, so we're free for startup services. And state of Montana and rural development have been highly supportive of our work. So that allows us to provide those startup services for free. Once you get into the implementation, you're incorporated and stuff, that kind of gets transferred over to the council, where we do have some fees tied to it. But overall, so I appreciate that question, though. That was very kind of you.
Well, we all work as a network and a support system for the economy of Montana and all of its so excellent. Does anyone have any additional questions or want to keep the conversation going? I mean, I've been learning so much. This has been fantastic.
I appreciate you guys, and I value the learning, and I'm hoping that in the next few years I'll be at that point where I'm ready to jump in. But I really appreciated the ongoing conversation, because I learn a lot every time. So thank you. I don't have any like burning at this moment questions, but
I'll put my my email in the chat. So if you want, if anything pops up or be like, oh, I should have asked that question, don't hesitate to shoot me an email.
And that email will be included in the follow-up email I'll be sending to everyone as well, along with the slides and the link to the this recording. Thank you. All right. Well, in that case, thank you guys, everyone. This has been one of my favorites. I think this has just been fantastic. Sam, I think our
well, thank you.
But yeah. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll be including some additional Tuesday trainings at the bottom of the email, so keep an eye out for those, or through our Food and Ag monthly newsletter. We've got some great ones coming up, including next month we'll be interviewing Tom Knopf of Eden Feeds, who's a local value-added producer in Great Falls. And then we'll be working with Tammy Howard of NCAT about their farmers market vendor toolkit, which I'm super excited about. Give people that edge for planning their next farmers market. Cool. All right. Thank you guys so much. And we'll be in touch. Take care.
Great. Thank you, Anna.
All right. I think that went really well.
I did too.
That was fascinating. I need to remember to ask histories and turn off the recording. One sec.